What is up? Welcome to the Blast Off podcast. Today we have Todd. Todd is killing it in wholesale, and we're going to go over his journey from a newbie wholesaler to wholesaling a $9 million investment portfolio. Okay, so Todd, tell me about yourself. Who are you and how did you get into real estate?
No, it's all a blur. But I just remember last year's when I started, I decided to just quit my job. I didn't have any plans. I was just burned out. I was a project manager for a digital commercial advertising agency, and I just got, I don't know, it stopped speaking to me. I was burned out. That's how I realized I was burned out. I was like, I had no passion to go, and even though I could work from home, basically make my own hours and stuff, it wasn't doing it for me because I had been doing it for so long that I just, I lost the desire to do it anymore.
What inspired you to go down the wholesaling route? Why not stock trading or something different?
It's a good question. I think at the time I was on TikTok and I found this wholesaler. I took his little mentorship. It gave me a little primer, and in the first couple of weeks, I was able to get a property under contract before anyone. There's 80 something people in the mentorship, and I was the first one to get it in 2 weeks. Never had any experience. Sadly, it didn't end up closing because I didn't know what I was doing. So after that, I had partnered up with somebody. I actually partnered up so that I could save money, but we ended up actually spending more money getting together, joining forces. It was ridiculous. I had discovered Jamil from Astro. I started following him, and I was like, who's this Jamil guy? I started following him a little bit, just kind of doing a deep dive on him. And then I go, oh, okay, let's see, Astro flipping, wholesale. That must be wholesale or something. So anyway, I reached out to somebody in his free group, and within 2 weeks, somebody responded back to me. And I spoke to representatives for the enrollment counselors or whatever, and I ended up going with Jamil with Astro because the guy spent time on the phone with me, explained it. It sounded like he had a good experience, and I was like, okay, this seems like a pretty logical segue for me to go instead of going into this whole new world of creative finance. That's how I got here.
Awesome. Okay, so you're in Astro flipping, you're starting to get your wheels wholesaling. How did you come across this portfolio?
So I was on Facebook doing reaching out and stuff, trying to do acquisition. I found this guy that had a post. I can't remember what it said or anything like that. I just remember I reached out to him. We connected. He started sending me off-market properties in Detroit, which was not even my market. And then the properties weren't working for me. And really, I had just started Astro, so I was so green, I didn't really know what to do. I knew the other style of wholesaling, which was direct to seller, but this was, agent outreach. It was a different animal. I think I connected with somebody in sub 2. I met somebody in sub 2. He was a creative guy. He gave me his little criteria. And then whenever I talked to people, I would just give that criteria. Well, one time I was talking to this guy, John, the agent I met in Detroit, and I said, hey, do you have anything like this? A week or two went by, and then he sends me this portfolio. And I tried to shop it around. I didn't know what I was doing again. So we ended up passing on that one. So what happened was a few weeks went by. He hits me up. This time he calls me. He doesn't even send it to me. And he says, hey, I have a father and son. I'm doing an audit on their portfolio because we're going to take over the property management for them. And they want to sell their portfolio. And they're offering terms. And then we went from there.
Okay, so now you have this portfolio. What kind of barriers are you facing to getting this portfolio sold?
Before we even tried to sell it, I worked with my creative partner, and he structured it. We vetted out the properties. I comped a lot of the properties. I think we comped about 30 or 40 of the properties in the portfolio to see if it was even worth doing a deal. And then it turned out it was like, oh, these properties they're undervalued, they're mismanaged. So it looked like there was a deal there. But the price that they were asking is way too high. They were asking too much for the shape of the properties we're in. So we knew that there was potential. We had to figure out how to convince them, just like typical wholesaling, convincing the seller that their property is not worth what they think it is. We came up with a plan. We put the prices of what we thought the actual values were, and then what the ARVs were. The conversations kind of developed from there. They were just nice people to deal with.
When you were doing your due diligence, how did you do that due diligence? Did you have photos of each property?
Limited, but the property manager, he had helped me out a lot. Anything, because I didn't know that market. I'd ask him questions. He'd go ahead and just answer anything we needed. It took about, I think, a week and a half, and then we did we comped all the properties.
When you did finally find a buyer, what were some of the hurdles that you were going over to bring that to the finish line?
Once we had the father and son agreeing to the terms, the problem was my creative partner couldn't perform. Basically, we got him down to, I think, to put 200,000 down. He didn't want to do that, so he started looking for other creative partners. And when he did that, I started to think maybe this is not the right person that's going to buy this portfolio. Maybe I need to try to shop it myself. But he just dropped off, as like, because we couldn't make anything work. So I went upon took it upon myself to just keep talking to the father and son, keeping that rapport, building it. And then I found some people, like it was like a Michigan real estate Facebook group, and I connected with them. That was a mistake because they ended up going behind my back after we had signed a non-disclosure agreement and non-circumvent agreement. What I've learned is that you have to know where the money is. Like you need to know that you can connect that, whoever it is, to the money. Fast forward maybe into April, because I think I went back to the father and son because I felt like I was bothering them every time I'd reach out with somebody and then they weren't the buyers. I was so attached to the outcome of this, like selling this deal and making sure that I was doing whatever I could do to make sure that this deal would go through, no matter what, right? Even if I was doing dumb stuff and I was like, man, I just gotta let this go. And if it comes back to me, it's meant to be, and that'll be, we'll sell it. It'll be great. But if it doesn't, then I guess it's not meant to be, kind of a thing. A couple months go by. I think we were in around May, and I was on my daily walk, and this guy Charlie, he calls me up. He says, "Hey, Chodrick, do you still have that portfolio in Michigan that you're looking to sell?" I go, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, I have the buyers for it." I'm like, "Oh, okay." He goes, "Can you deliver it?" I go, "Yeah, I can deliver it." We talked for quite a while. He said, "I'll introduce you to my contact at our hedge fund or at the hedge fund." And I said, "Okay." So we set it up, had a great conversation with the hedge fund. I then felt comfortable enough, after I did a little vetting for myself, to connect them to the owners of the portfolio. Everybody just got along really well. It was a really, really pleasant conversation. And the owners were at ease with the hedge fund owner, like right away, and they wanted to start moving forward.
During the escrow period, when you're trying to work out the fine details of the transaction, how did you just sell an entire portfolio? Like, how does the title company handle that?
We weren't in escrow right away like that. The process was once everybody was in agreement, in the basic terms of like price, all that stuff, everything was getting done like simultaneously, which really accelerated the process. And during that time, we were under contract, but we were just under contract in the sense that everybody was in agreement to the basic terms. Credit to that hedge fund and his staff. I've never seen a team work so symbiotically, like just so natural, and they just had everything perfect. There were barely any hiccups in this whole thing. I was amazed by how smooth the transaction was. Every time we had a meeting, we'd refine it and we'd say, okay, well, this and this, and we'd keep refining the contract. Finally got to the contract where everybody's in agreement. We nailed everything down. And then once that happened, attorneys got involved. They started looking over the actual contracts, and then it would go back and forth. We needed to do something with proceeds. That was going to be a tax solution for them. So it just happens that this is a hedge fund, so they were able to roll the proceeds, that 9.4 million, into the funds that the hedge fund had just started.
When you got paid, like how do they transfer that much money?
They sent it to me. So Title sent me the payment from the hedge fund, and then the sellers wrote me a personal check. It was pretty surreal. And then when we finally did it, it was just like, wow, congratulations to everyone. Like, we did this, and it's like, and even when I talked to my contact for the hedge fund,
how are you going to make that money work for you?
We're getting started in Gator Lending.
So just so that the people know that's watching this, Gator Lending, that's where you lend people's EMD and you make money on it. So let's say, for example, I called up Todd and I'm like, "Hey Todd, I have this $1 million property. They want $10,000 EMD. I don't have that money on me at the moment, but if you fund my EMD on this, I'm going to give you $2,000 when it closes." So now Todd will put the EMD into this deal, help me get it to the finish line. And then when it comes to the finish line, Todd gets a quick $2,000 and there was no risk to him. So that's what Gator Lending is.
As far as the Gator Lending, I mean, you got to make sure that you have a deal it's a deal. If you need help and you have a solid deal, then reach out.
Congratulations on your success, bro. Thank you very much for being on the podcast. Anything you want to leave people off with?
You really have to know who you're doing business with. Like, really understand who you're doing business with. Vet them, and when you vet them some more. The other thing is knowing your role in the transaction. Are you a wholesaler, and you're trying to sell this deal, and maybe you just need to connect the dots. The third thing is learn how to detach from the outcome.
Well, guys, you heard it here. That's Todd. Todd is amazing. Todd, do you want people to reach out to you, or do you want to stay incognito?
Now they can reach out to me. I mean,
how can they reach out to you?
You can send deals to deals@flowcowflips.com. Food_pornographer. That's my IG.
Well, thank you, Todd. I appreciate you, bro. And that is it for episode 1 of the Blast Off podcast.